You know those moments in a TV show, usually a comedy, where the learnings from plot B end up being revelatory to plot A? Some deep-seated trauma is worked out, and seeing someone else change is just good enough for our real main character to see the light ahead of them. Rue Valley is a game obsessed with that moment, and it uses the guise of a time loop to force you to figure it out yourself. If you don't figure yourself out, you're stuck here forever. And in a way, that's sort of the premise of time loops in general. Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow, Palm Springs, we can point that lens at games too. Deathloop, Returnal. I haven't played 12 Minutes, but I've heard it has similar themes and also that people are mad at it. And Rue Valley takes both what works about time loop narratives and often their biggest sticking point and throws it together in a package that falters in areas I wasn't expecting it to, but still hits hard with a spiderweb story of characters and their unique pains, backgrounds and connections that still engrosses to the end. I think ultimately I like Rue Valley a little less than what I was expecting from the initial demo, but I can't argue it doesn't have a heaping of charm. Here's what happened when I played Rue Valley for myself. So, let's take it back to the start of the loop. At 8 PM, you find yourself in the middle of a therapy session, estranged from your own life, and temporarily residing in a small back-end town known as Rue Valley. Unmotivated, burnt out, and carrying something deeper that sent you here in the first place, you get through your first therapy session, nodding and agreeing just to get out the door, then you are set loose on a receptionist who is ignoring you in pursuit of hounding a customer service agent to fix the terrible Wi-Fi. Outside stands a woman kicking a machine to get the coffee she paid for. Succumbing to the new life you found yourself in, you crawl into your new hotel room. One mysterious phone call and seemingly an eternity of self-loathing brings you to 20 to 9, where lightning strikes outside, a car hits a generator, and in your final moments, a blast goes off deep to the left. You embrace death, only to wake up at 8 PM, back in your therapy session. Though you're timed, Rue Valley only moves forward as you interact with things, so it's got a fairly chill point-and-click style to it all, one that allows you to tear back the world at your own rate, methodically mapping out the day's events and the people stuck in this town. I wouldn't want to mislead you with that reference though. Rue Valley isn't puzzle-heavy in the same way point-and-click games tend to be. There is a puzzle system in a form of a mind map you build out as you learn things, but this is almost closer to a narrative device and a tool if you forget names than an in-depth puzzle mechanic. You earn points of inspiration when you do certain things, and you can spend them investing in thoughts. These thoughts give you new paths to take, and this will unlock dialogue, which means puzzles feel sort of like a spot the difference game. You're in the same loop, but something is changed, and you have to pull on that thread to get something new. And Rue Valley is odd in a way, because some of its biggest sells feel heavily underutilized. The best way I can express this is in the stats and effects system. At the start of the game, you invest points into a handful of character traits, but the twist is that having too much of anything is sort of bad. Too impulsive, and you don't think out actions, therefore removing some options as you play. If you are too measured, you lock yourself out of some actions because you've overthought it. Too sensitive, and you find it hard to function, and often find yourself apologizing or pushing the focus onto yourself. Too cold, and you become callous and disinterested. Given the state of our main character, making character traits negative regardless of which way is neat and touches on the cyclical nature of a time loop. You feel like an animal with a shock collar prodding at the edges of the yard, too scared and held back to ever just run, but just brave enough and bored enough to map out your free space. This all works to make you feel trapped despite the vast openness of Rue Valley itself. It's a charming way of restricting you, but it actually doesn't bear much on the story or really feel like it's changing how you play or the decisions you make. You will fail sometimes because of those stats, and you have to work around your own indecisions or impulsiveness, but it's rarely more than a dialogue option or secondary path. And in this sense, Rue Valley feels oddly linear. It feels like there's a desired path and an order to things that the game wants you to take. Missing the odd skill check is certainly fun to some extent, but I don't feel like my time in the valley will be all that different to the next person playing it. You also pick up traits on your character that affect those stats, but when those stats don't matter that much, neither do the effects. In fairness though, this is a story worth exploring. It's nuanced and fully justifies the preamble. Everything from the aesthetic of this barren desert civilization, to the time loop you're in, to the escape that the stars represent for the test shuttle nearby. It takes you through winding paths, discovering the buried tales of a conspiracist family, the breakdowns of multiple relationships throughout the town, and the ways we all cling to someone else when we feel like we've got nothing left. That mind map may be a good way to know names, but it's also a rather powerful tool when you zoom out and realize all of the people, locations, and quests that tie together in one big police-style evidence board. I like Rue Valley's writing as a whole, and I do think that story is worth getting to, but I don't think I always enjoyed it moment to moment. Sometimes it feels like the game is just dying to get in and monologue, and this makes you feel like you're talking to someone who just wants you to finish your sentence so they can say what's on their mind. There's a scrappy charm to it, but also one that feels kind of detached. And that's because it has these moments, these sections of clarity, a melody cutting through a noisy cacophony. But it feels disparate and disconnected sometimes, like the game changes gears and says, we're not doing exposition, we're doing prose now. I think there's a way the game's explanations and its pondering can be more neatly tied together, and they're not necessarily. I think our main character, a depressed nobody who's really given up on fixing things, is a good vessel for a story that is just desperate to pull them along, but I don't think their tone is always on point. Rue Valley also really hammers home that time loop at points by making you commit to seeing and doing the same things. I think this is justified textually, but I think this can feel a little lacking mechanically because it only half commits. Some things stop happening the second time around, like the therapist doesn't inform you that you're walking into his bathroom when you try to go in there, despite him doing so in prior loops. That's clearly intended to save some time, as there's a book on his bathtub you can read, but it also makes the world feel a tad less cohesive. It makes those time loops feel less like actual time loops. I suppose you could argue this is because of a changed disposition and your therapist can understand that change, but in this specific case, you've woken up in a body that a minute ago held no desires, so I don't really understand how we can now know what has changed. And for clarity, I think this choice is a fine one on paper. I'm perfectly okay with a game playing fast and loose with the logic of its loop, but I also think it gets caught in an awkward middle ground, where it skips just enough that you don't want to click through the repetition. And I think if done right, there's a fun meta play on you as the viewer by forcing you to click over and over again, only for something big to crash through and change the narrative. I think I admire the choice to play through the same days, but also feel like part of the joy of that loop is lost in that mechanical no man's land. Rue Valley does make some interesting mechanical choices though. It pulls the wool over your eyes frequently, and the story and world took me to places I wasn't expecting from the first hour or so with the game. It's a clever experience, despite my perceived inconsistencies. And in case it's not clear from my yapping, I actually like Rue Valley a great deal. I think its style is unique, its music really punches you in the gut in the right moment, and I think the guts of the story is one of my favourite narratives in a little while. I levy my critiques with love for a game that I think deserves it. I think it's apparent how much effort has gone into this work to make characters that are deftly woven together, with strands pulling them in different directions, with a town that you just can't wait to escape. I think it's easy to get lost in the loops, and the game doesn't exactly help itself in that regard, but it's oh so satisfying to break out into that wider world. And those are my thoughts on Rue Valley. This was a game I was quite looking forward to. I did a video last month saying it was one of the Disco Elysium successes I was most looking forward to. Wow, I used that phrase twice in a sentence, and by the time I got to it, I felt like a bit of a deer in the headlights. Anyway, and I think I strayed away from the Disco Elysium comparison a little here, because by the time I got into the meat of the story, it felt like something different. And there's definitely Disco Elysium comparisons to be made, and inspirations are very clear there, and the director is sort of acknowledged as such. But I also think there's something you can draw back to the LucasArts style point-and-click games, and I think through that lens it makes a lot of sense. It's less open-ended, and it feels like it has a specific thing it wants you to find and very specific information it wants to give you. I think Disco Elysium has this shotgun spread to its world and its story and all those little parts, and Rue Valley feels a little bit more sort of simplistic in a sense, in a way that it feels intentional. Anyway, I enjoyed this experience. I think I wanted it to be a little better and a little more cohesive in some areas, but I still think it was quite good. I think, yeah, that music is good. It does have a really good atmosphere that's helped by the visuals. It's helped by just weird characters doing weird things. And I do love that. I like a world that is strange and not in a jarring, intentional way, though I like that too. I like when characters are weird because they feel weird, because someone who's met a character or a person in real life that feels like that and thought, I want that person in my game. And there's parts of that I felt in Rue Valley, like, wow, that's a strange thing for you to say. So it is charming in a lot of ways. Thank you for watching this. I didn't do my little subscriber call out. I've been doing them recently, but then I got to 4,500 subscribers, and I think I'm happy for that to be where I've hit this year. If you like this and want to subscribe, I'd obviously really appreciate you doing so. But I guess I don't want to get greedy with 2025. I'm happy to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm happy for you to keep watching these videos. If you've got to this point, let me know if you have any thoughts on Rue Valley or anything else you think I should be playing. I'm currently debating doing a sort of Game of the Year catch-up thing where I do these small videos on things I played this year and give some very hot takes on them, or actually not really hot takes, quick takes, I think. I'm not too sure how that'll shape up, but I'd like to do that soon. Anyway, I've talked too much here. Thank you so much. If you would like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I'm still a very small channel that's growing very steadily, and I'm very happy with that. Also, like the video. Thank you. Bye.